a lot of my time, I'll share. I have no problem sharing the abuse. The part that I really like to share is my healing journey and getting that out there to help others. And you'll find me on YouTube, and that is my podcast, which is Healing and Growing Hand in Hand. I'm on Instagram, which is, I believe, Lisa M. Tickel. I'm on TikTok, which is Lisa Tickel. I'm on Facebook, not real big onto Facebook, but those are the other medias. I'm also on LinkedIn as Lisa Tickel. So that's the way you can reach out to me. And then I guess at the end, I can share a great little announcement that I've got coming up that I'm very excited about.
That's exciting news. I look forward to that announcement that you can mention in a little bit. But take us right from the beginning. What type of abuse and trauma did you experience, which led you to do the work that you do, as well as your healing journey?
So my abuse was everything but sexual, fortunately, I guess. There's a whole nother dynamic when it comes to the sexual abuse as opposed to the others. And so mine started, like I said, as far back as I can remember. It really started with my brother. My brother was adopted. He's 7 years older than me. And I honestly don't remember ever having a good time with him when I was little. I remember seeing videos of us when we were little. I was about 4 years old, and he was actually playing with me. And it seems so foreign to me, to see us playing together. So interesting. But his was a lot of verbal, emotional, and physical abuse. And at a really young age for him, I believe around 11 or 12, he actually started doing drugs. And we're talking heavy duty drugs. We're not talking just marijuana. We're talking mind altering drugs, which only took the situation and made it worse. So you took someone who was already unstable and it became worse. And I seemed to be the one that he liked to take the abuse out on. It took me a long time to figure this part out, but my parents' responsibility in this is my father never protected me. He was actually afraid of my brother. And when my brother was 13, I witnessed the power change where my dad went in to spank him with the paddle and my brother took the paddle out of his hand. So I saw the dynamic change there. My mom, and then what happened when I was around 11 or 12, I started putting on weight because I started emotionally eating. I didn't understand at the time what was going on, but that's what was going on. I was emotionally eating, putting on weight. I was very active. I was always playing and roller skating. So, it was interesting. And then, of course, with my mother, I was this pretty little girl that she just loved to dress up. Easter was a big deal because she would take me out and we'd buy a whole new outfit, and she loved doing that. Well, when I started turning 11, 12, and I started putting weight on, I'm not that cute little girl anymore. And she became very vicious and, threatened, like, for example, threatened to not buy me any clothes until I lose weight. I had no idea how to lose weight. I didn't know how I was gaining weight. I didn't understand. So there was that kind of mentality going on. Then when I was around 14, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. And then 2 years later, I lost her, which is traumatic. But what to add the trauma to that trauma is my parents never told me she was dying. And I didn't find out until literally 3 days before she died that she was actually dying. I thought she was going to get better, and I was actually very involved in her care. So I see her look like maybe getting better, and I'm thinking she's going to do great. And then she didn't. And then my world really fell apart after that because my dad completely shut down. He became severely depressed about this. All the adults in my life disappeared, including family. And so I just remember sitting on my friend's bed when I was right after my mom died and thought, whose mom dies at 16? Like, how does this happen? This is crazy, and just like, because this, again, I got told 3 days before that she was dying. I had no idea. So I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. And then she dies. She really does die. And whose mom does this? And just remember thinking, well, I guess I just have to move on. And so I tried. And that's probably the worst thing you can do. But again, even at school, I didn't get support. Counselors, teachers, so I had to manage that whole childhood abuse and losing your mother. I had to navigate that on my own. And I was aware at the time that I had been through abuse because I even thought at one point maybe not having children because I was afraid I was going to pass it on. But I made a commitment And God was blessed me with a beautiful son, and he was not abused, but it was definitely a consideration. But at 19 was when I realized that there was something going on with me. I could tell that I was in a lot of pain, um, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. So that's where I started my healing journey at 19. But again, back then there wasn't a lot out there. There wasn't trauma therapy. Didn't even know a lot about trauma. And so I just kind of fumbled through, and I did some growing, but I spent the majority, like I mentioned earlier, majority of my adult life completely in survival mode. And what that is like is you're on constant alert. You're always looking for something to go wrong. That is what your mindset is you are looking for something to go wrong so you can fix it before it turns into something bigger. So imagine always being anxious and just, I guess, overwhelmed a lot of times. And then if something does happen, you know, it's real easy to lose complete control, which I lived with that for many, many years. And it's interesting because I went from one type of family and I married into a very similar type of family. They were not directly abusive with me per se, but there was a lot of the same kind of mindset thinking. And I stayed with that husband for 25, we were married for 25 years. And it was a really rough marriage. And the reason why I'm kind of going through this is what my abuse did. I made some choices in my life, including in relationships that weren't healthy. And it's not that they were bad people, it's just unhealthy people come together, right? So, yeah, just like healthy people come together. And so, and I don't like to disparage my ex-husband at all, because we were both a mess coming together, really. And I got out of that. The one thing that was told to me by my brother when I was about 11, and this will really explain a lot about the choices I made in relationships, is, and I 100% believed it, is he told me that nobody loved me, that all the family, friends, and everybody, nobody liked me. Not only did they not like me, they didn't love me. And he told me as so matter of factly, it was like the conversation we're having here, very calm. And I just remember being like my chest, like someone punched me in the chest. I was so devastated. And I believed him 100%. So imagine taking that into your adult life. So I was always on the hunt to find somebody that loves me, right? And I have to have somebody that loves me. So I got out of that marriage and I got right into another relationship because, again, I had to find that, I had to fill that void in me and I was doing the wrong thing. That ended up being after I married him, and I did marry him quickly. It was a very narcissistic relationship. I didn't know what the term was at the time, but I knew, excuse me, I'd gone through enough healing that I knew his behavior was really bizarre. And he didn't show the behavior until after we got married. And we were married for just over a year and a half, and he unfortunately passed from cancer. And then I did a deep dive. I did a deep dive within myself and said, okay, I've been making some choices here that are not healthy, and I'm the common denominator. What do I need to do to change that? And so at this point, there's more trauma therapy out there. There's EMDR, which I have done and which is fabulous, and it has really helped a lot. And I just did some really deep soul searching and did a lot of reading and just looking deep within and understanding more and more about myself and about my past. And the one thing that is really in doing my podcast, I've done so much research on trauma and the education, what it has done for me, and learning about trauma, learning about abuse and how it affects us has been able to allow me to separate my identity from, I'm not a victim. I can separate it. There's a space between me and my behavior now. And now I understand my behavior. I can forgive myself for my behavior, change my behavior, and feel so empowered. Instead of feeling helpless like I felt before, that I was just going through life and doing this stuff because I just couldn't help it, which was very frustrating. I took my power back. And I'm responsible 100% for what I do and what I don't do, how I respond, how I react. And that's been really empowering. And so that's a very Reader's Digest version of my story.
I like it because you mentioned a number of things that people can learn from, right? Like you mentioned being stuck in the victim mentality because a lot of people are
Mhm.
trapped in it because it's comfortable. It's like that old sweater out of
Yes.
your closet, right? Makes you feel
Yeah.
good, doesn't matter how beaten and worn it is. And then there's also something else you mentioned is that you took back your power. I know a lot of people when they feel powerless, they feel isolated because they feel isolated, they sit in their feelings, and because they sit in their
Yep.
feelings and sometimes their thoughts, it leads them to do things that they look back, they're like, oh my God, did I
Yes.
actually do that? I remember
Yes.
someone told me a story. They began to soothe themselves by bringing chaos into other people's
Yep.
lives. So what they would do is they would put on this mask that they're healed, that they're healthy, and
Correct.
then find these people and I don't want to say wreak havoc, but what they would do is they would disrupt their lives. And sometimes a lot of people that are healed, they want to heal other people because they know what it's like to not be healed,
Exactly.
right? Like, did you find
Exactly. Yes.
yourself trying to figure out, okay, this is my healing journey, but I want to make sure that I'm not damaging other people along the way?
Yes, yes, that is one. Yeah, when I realized I was doing that, because you mentioned something really interesting. When I was in survival mode, and I call when you get squeezed, you'll do things that you wouldn't normally do. There were things that I did in survival mode that I wouldn't do outside of survival mode, and that's the things that I had to forgive myself for, right? But yes, I mean, helping others has been I didn't realize it, but it really is a passion of mine because I know what it's like to suffer like that. And I also know the statistics. I also know that most people who suffer from childhood abuse don't even mention it for 30 to 40 years. That's a long time to suffer, long time to suffer. And so, yeah, if we can shorten people's suffering and get that, because you can heal from trauma. You can absolutely heal and manage trauma so that it no longer affects your life. I know my life is better now than it would have been probably if I didn't have the abuse. That sounds crazy, but the journey that I went on and what I have learned out of that and the growth and the strength that I have in me, I wouldn't know if I had it or not.
Like, this Lisa is carved in the fires, whereas before
Yeah.
she didn't have that she didn't have that desire or that passion or maybe that situation to create the person that you have now. It's very interesting how you have people that will be coaches, therapists, mentors, whatever title you want to give them, right? When you
Right.
ask them why they got into it, they'll point to a trauma that they had.
Yeah, they call it post-trauma healing. That's what they call it, post-trauma healing. And there's so many of them I've ran into, and I just find it wonderful that they want to pay it forward. They want to help. They've gone through their journey, they figured out what worked for them, and they want to get it out there for others.
Yeah, so I wonder. And this is not saying that everyone should go through something in the world today,
No,
right?
we're all kind of going through
No,
something right
right?
now.
You know what I mean? Could you imagine? Okay, every single person, by the time you're born, you're 5, we have to just give you childhood trauma so you're a better person as an adult. No. But what I do like is that I like that there's a lot of people out there who are paying it forward and making sure that it's not being repeated. And better yet, when people who are victims of childhood abuse, I'm glad to see that they make sure that they're not repeating it and putting their children through because I know there's a lot of people and I spoke to a lot of parents on my podcast who they've caught themselves like, "Oh my God,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
became my mom and dad to my child." And because they have the tools in their adulthood, they're able to at least see it, but then they realize how easy it can be for someone to fall into that trauma
correct.
just like how their parents were. And to be honest, I know you're a little bit older than me. Like, there's a generation out there that talking about these things wasn't something that was necessarily done. It was more
Oh,
so,
no.
you don't talk about this. It's just a way of life. It's like being bullied in school. It's just a
Yeah,
passage of
exactly.
your adulthood, right? Like, so when you're on your healing journey, do you see that being a stumbling block for the people who want to do better because they're still holding on to the trauma because maybe they're grieving over the person that they have to let go because they're no longer that person anymore. Now they're becoming a new, hopefully improved version of themselves.
Well, there's that. And there's also people who don't even realize they've been abused. That sounds weird, But it's interesting because that happened to me. You know, for so many years, right? For generations after generations, behavior was acceptable and wasn't considered abuse. And now we're seeing that it's abuse. And so people and adults are now looking back and going, oh, you know, that's abuse, because there's, you know, there's not a clear outline exactly of what is considered abuse. We're just now starting to put that together. So you've got that reality of people not realizing that there's abuse. Here's an example. I used to do and I'm resurrecting it, but I used to do a workshop for women healing from childhood abuse. And I had a friend come to me, and she was going to come and bring a friend of hers, and she was going to attend the workshop as support for her friend. She said, you know, my background is my mom and dad were both alcoholics, but they were fun. Like, it was fun. They weren't mean or anything. So, you know, I wasn't abused. Well, yes, because an alcoholic parent cannot meet your needs. They can't. They're just not able to. So she didn't even realize until she took the workshop